is the same mentality of sharing that game culture was originated from. This experience is essential for me in the way I look at the possibility of digital culture today. Another key experience that led to the involvement with Piratbyrån was born in 2000 when I made a video that was censored and stopped on copyright grounds. The video Pippi Examples consisted of short sequences in slow motion from Pippi Longstocking films made around 1970. The video was made to question the sexualized common gaze. The copyright holders, the Swedish film industry, disapproved of the video, and after a national debate, a settlement was made and all the copies of Pippi Examples was destroyed. I came to understand that I had to fight for my freedom of speech and that I could no longer only rely on my identity as an artist to be able what I do. My work with Piratbyrån is one way for me to map out, understand the relation and powers involved with production of art in society and finding a power to oppose the current copyright regime. In my work, I always appropriate, borrow, or steal other people's work to make something new. I live in, I distribute with, and I take from the circulation of information. The configuration of the medial structures are my workspace. The motivation for my work is try to intervene in this structure and expand the gray zone. I'm now running a project called Alt Liberated about art, censorship, and intellectual property with Piratbyrån as an answer to my experiences. The idea of Art Liberated is to understand and map out and help artistic appropriation, to collect cases of censorship and alike in one site, contextualize the work that otherwise would fade away as anomalies. I believe, contrary to the common opinion, that we should have a basic right to take from whatever passes us in the stream of media, and that this is essential for the cultural existence of the information age because we are the function that makes this circulation possible. This is not a right that can be restricted. Instead, this is the way one survives inside this pit. The Pirate Year of 2005. The project Art Liberated was launched in January at another of Piratbyrån's event, the Polar Pirate Prize. The Polar Pirate Prize is an annual award show and a party including seminars awarding the worst and the best of the pirate world. This marked the start of a very, very hectic and interesting year.
Yeah, and I will tell you something about what's been happening in Sweden this year, because things escalated very much in March when Sweden's anti-piracy lobby organization, they called Anti-Piratbyrån, they in fact were founded before us, so we just had to delete the anti and had our name clear. Okay, Anti-Piratbyrån. They managed to arrange a raid at the Swedish ISP called Bahnhof, claiming that they hosted unlicensed material. And the raid was conducted in a kind of unlawful manner, and it was discovered later that the anti-piracy lobby had in fact paid an infiltrator for several months to upload copyright-protected material and place hardware at the ISP to arrange a raid. And the public, didn't get public before a group called Angry Young Hackers hacked Anti-Piratbyrån's webpage and their email, and exposing their mail conversation with this infiltrator, and with the Motion Picture Association of America too. I don't know if they are here. So, and that spawned a public outcry, of course. And the lawyer and spokesperson for the Anti-Piratbyrån, Henrik Pontén, he has received thousands of hate SMS every week, including death threats from a lot of angry young kids. And it turned on a big public debate. And many other people start to realize that the war against file sharing has wide-ranging consequences for internet freedom and also business freedom in general. And the opposition against the copyright industry in Sweden has broadened a lot since then. So, I mean, for example, a lot of right-wing libertarians in Sweden have turned into defenders, hard defenders of file sharing, understanding what's going on if you just let this kind of organizations, like arranging raids at any company they want to. And so this kind of libertarian critique of intellectual property has also experienced an upswing. So politically, there are really people on all kinds of the spectras you can find sympathizing with Privatbyrån, maybe except for the ruling Social Democrats. But all the political parties are, in general, of course, officially anti-piracy. So, but another really fun outcome of, of this Bahnhof raid and the hacking of angry young hackers, it's that the Motion Pictures Association of America, the MPAA, obviously was about to intentionally spread a lie about terrorist connections. They sent out an international press release about the raid in Stockholm. And if you open that Microsoft Word document and choose Trace Changes, you could find statements claiming that Swedish authorities had found a link between the suspected release group and a terrorist group known as the Yellow Brigades. Yellow Brigades. Well, that was in fact the name of a group. It was a group of German elite soldiers fighting for Sweden in the 30 Years' War. Most of them got killed in the Battle of Lützen, year 1632. And since then, no one has heard of them, until the movie industry started to hunt them in a Swedish server hall in 2005. I mean, if the movie industry could, like, channel that kind of phantasm into making better movies, I mean, what should they worry for? All right.
Yeah, the 1st of May demonstration. At this hot spring, at the 1st of May, it was time for all internet lovers, file sharers and pirates to gather in Stockholm. Piratbyrån's celebration in a park featured music, 3 speakers talking about creativity and the transgression of the copyright law. A hand-to-hand copy swap was expanded to a coffin where you could place and share CDs. The counterfiling of the anti-pirate organization regarding the raid at Bahnhof was at the same time handed over to the police. A big crowd of something like 800 people with very different background came with banners like "No software patents, sharing is caring, and all your base station belongs to us." The paroles were, "Copy me, we will continue to copy everything. Don't touch our internet, and the welfare begins at 100 megabytes. Oh. It is important to know that this aggressively humanist attitude is something that characterized the pro-piracy movement that we are presenting. One internationally famous example are the letters written in response to the legal threats from companies like Microsoft, DreamWorks, and Warner Brothers from the Pirate Bay.
They are to be found, their websites, as you may know.
Check it out, it's great.
Oh, the rest of the Swedish delegation is coming. Oh. Yeah, so back to the dramatics. After this Bahnhof raid and the 1st of May demonstration, we also had the first case against an individual file sharer in Sweden. And the sentence came a couple of months ago. And we have been, in our argumentation, we are trying to highlight the relevant things in our argumentation. And number one is that the guy who shared one movie and he was convicted to pay a fine. And that, under Swedish law, basically means that the same process cannot be repeated. Because it's not that hard crime. And Sweden has secrecy on IP addresses, meaning that the police may only inquire ISPs after identity of someone on the net if it is a more of serious offense than so. And then Anti-Piratbyrån, of course, said that no one should feel safe. They will catch people anyway just by reporting a greater number of movies to police. And that may work on peer-to-peer networks like Direct Connect. However, on BitTorrent, you cannot see how many files an individual file sharer is sharing. Only what IP addresses that are sharing one particular torrent, and that's quite important. So clarifying that might weaken them trying to scare people. So we try to point such things out and show that network protocols are almost always one step ahead of the juridic protocols. So we try to show how hollow the anti-pirate organizations' claims of their own success are. Then the second thing we try to point out is regarding this judgment of the file sharers, is that the courts have chosen to rely on screen dumps as evidence. And screen dumps submitted to the police by Anti-Piratbyrån themselves. And it is, of course, very controversial to let private lobby groups representing the movie industry get that kind of control over jurisdictions. So it's basically about clarifying what a screen dump is and what road we are turning into if we accept it that way. So we demonstrated the madness by producing a piece of software called the Evidence Machine, letting anyone go to a site and produce fake evidence of file sharing against anyone. The juridical dilemma is still not settled, so hopefully this kind of pedagogical tools can demonstrate what it's about. And it's also been translated to Danish and so on. I guess it's this problem of screen dumps in the juridical system is not only in Scandinavia. And another big issue of big debate in Sweden this year has been Anti-Piratbyrån's registering of IP addresses of suspected file sharers. And that habit was banned as they had not applied for the special license you've got to have under Swedish law to do that. However, later it turned around, and they got the dispense from the authorities, but it has, as you see, in many ways become obvious to the public that the anti-piracy lobby is also operating in their own and very doubtful gray zone legally. But of course, they are dependent on the existence of police officials willing to give priority to the hunting of file sharers over, so to say, real criminality. And that raises very controversial ethical questions that, of course, should remain open and have been quite open for debate in Sweden this year. And I mean, most policemen themselves are obviously not interested in hunting kids' file sharing. So it's easy to point at the totally unreasonable costs for taxpayers for every victim of the anti-piracy hunt. And there are people who are doing that too. But we are maybe focusing more on other things. So, well, another thing in Sweden is the new copyright law, the implementation of the EU copyright law that came the 1st of July this summer. Harder copyright law, where, well, for a long time it was legal to download music for personal use in Sweden, while the uploading of copyrighted material was criminal. But since the 1st of July, downloading also turned illegal. Well, while the anti-piracy lobby, of course, wants us to believe that it suddenly has become very dangerous to be a file sharer, and also many pro-file sharing people have been speaking up against the mass criminalization of teenagers and so on. Piratbyrån has tried to present a more realistic picture. Because, I mean, most file sharers use BitTorrent, in Sweden anyway. And with BitTorrent, every downloader is also an uploader. And therefore, they were exactly as criminal before this new law as they are today. It doesn't seem to have changed anything, and I mean, the rates of file sharing has not lowered in Sweden, of course. And generally, we think it's quite important not to accept this talking about so-called downloading, as if downloading was some kind of activity completely separate from the uploading. So we insist on talking about file sharing as a horizontal activity.